Hello. So just put some strings on the 12 string. I was just thinking, I watched a video just then, Sean Daniel. Great video, it's a great channel, you should check it out. I'm just noticing things that I do differently to other people who play guitar. I think we should call it a gromance, guitar romance. There's a whole heap of people online now that are just really good at guitar, and they're sharing all their great secrets and knowledge and experience. It's a pretty awesome time for guitar, even though it's not that much used in pop music as much anymore. As far as how to play the thing and all the secrets and that, it's a really great time. It's never been better. So in the video he's showing some great stuff with open chord like D and E minor and B minor, and it was great. There's little runs and stuff and connecting up all the different ideas. It's a really great whole channel actually, and there's a whole heap of channels like that. I just noticed he doesn't use his little finger that much, and I notice a lot of people do that, and I do that a lot myself. And I was just thinking about why. It's just simple. It's like this one's the runt of the litter. It's just not as strong. So it's harder to do, like, you know, and bending it is not nearly as easy as like these. I spend a lot of time trying to get all my fingers even in their strength, but this little pinky was never the same as the others. So it's harder to do to begin with, to just put that any kind of modulation or wobble on the note and bending. But also, even when you can do it, it's that much harder to control. It's really hard to control the little fingers. Like, you can sort of bend. Anyway, I'll keep tuning this. let's try them together, see if they I don't actually have any examples or anything set up, but just I like the way, like he goes, just something basic, like, and he does a D like this, and then he does this. It looks like his fingers are like. Oh. I love Sean. He's great. Probably should mention like some of the guitar channels out there that are really good to watch. You can pick up heaps of stuff, and not just guitar channels, but music in general. It's really, like I said, a good time. So the first one, without doubt, for me is Rick Beato, of course. It's absolutely gold mine of information. Just check it out. It's really covers pretty much all aspects of music production: guitar, drums, keyboards, arranging, rock, pop, yeah, every kind of music, soundtracks. You know, it's really broad and a lot of good quality content. So there's one, Rick Beato, and I've been watching him for quite a few years now. Before him, I was watching a dude. Anyway, there's also some non-guitar related ones that I was watching, which were really good. Amy, forget her name. I should have written all these down. She plays piano, jazz piano, and she just goes through things really good. I'll try and remember her name, pull it up. And another related one was Adam Neely, a bass. He's super interesting, and just, yeah, you should watch that. And then I come across Sean Daniels' channel, and then there's this Rob Stitch, the Stitch Method. There's Dovidas. There's Andre Collins. There's, who have I forgotten? There's a heap of them. They're like the Emerald Riders, and then there's a whole heap of ones like Steve Terryberry and Jared Deans. They're more entertaining and amazing, but less useful information for me. You get musicians like Leland Scarlett, the bass player. He's putting stuff up, and you can just find an amazing amount of information from these like legends, and they're sharing. They're real people sharing their stuff. It's really good. And along the same sort of thing, let's see, Lee Scarlett and Tim Pierce, and then there's a whole heap of, he's got some great stuff, like you can pick up heaps of stuff from these guys. They're just, they're gold mines. And then lately a favourite of mine has been Guthrie Trapp. He's a wonderful guy down in Nashville, over in Nashville, in America, in the States. I think most of these are in the States or in North America. Sean's got some nice channels that I've found out about through his channel. Like people exploring music, maybe not necessarily super expert, super legendary, but they're still just going through. You get like some really talented people like Mary Spender and Andrea, you know, the great singer is Sean, and he has a lot of singers with their own channels, and Guitar Goddess, and it's kind of interesting. This is, like I said, it's a really good time. Like I've even seen like Mark Knopfler's been like my ultimate hero guitar player. Like Mark Knopfler was showing us how he does his thing, and it's none of this takes place in practice, but you still have to actually get on the instrument, play it, even if it's like, you know, how do I do a C chord? Well, okay, there's something different about how I learned guitar. Is I didn't learn chords. I learned out of a book, but the book was handwritten for my mother, and my mother already knew how to play all the chords. She played in a band for years. You know, she was a singer, some, you know, guitar player, and they played in a professional band, like practiced 3 times a week till all hours, and played 1 or 2 gigs on a Friday and Saturday, and that was a pretty standard week in, week out thing for them. I only ever did cover songs, so we just learn them, I mean, listen to them over and over and over again when they practice, and we were in bed trying to go to sleep. So I have all this inbuilt, I don't know, I can't help it, it comes out. Anyway, she knew all the chords, like at the nut, you know, the nut chords. You know, she's just really good at that. So the book started off with scale. And the C scale at the root position, that's how it started. Just teaching you how to do it, not with a pick, with fingers. I worked out the code for the fingerings on the frets and the strings, but I couldn't, and I worked out the code for the fingering, but I couldn't follow it. I just did my own thing, and I couldn't work out. It was too much. Like, as a beginner, this is a Yamaha, a beautiful Yamaha 12-string. I've just put the strings on it, so I haven't even cut them off yet. And this guitar I started on was a Yamaha 6-string. It had been in the band, Mum's band, my parents' band, but it had fallen foul of an accident, fell out the back, and the headstock had been broken off. And it was insured, so they got another guitar, and that was fine. So this guitar was lying around. My stepdad had glued the headpiece back on. It had like an action that was like that high, and I'm not even kidding, when I got to it, because not only if you know, it wasn't too bad when you put the headstock on, it was never going to be right, but it wasn't too bad. But what had happened was, on the floor, my brother had jumped off the top bunk and managed to put his foot right through here. There was a big hole right here, and just the condition of the guitar was not great. And so the action on it was about yay high, and it was very difficult to just even hold a note down, which is why I tend to prefer nowadays guitars that make me work, and which is the opposite of what you want. Like I said, the way I learned was really different to the way you would want to learn guitar. Maybe, I don't know. So I learned the C scale. That was all it really had. Like sometimes they'd throw in this bizarre little like A flat, and I never understood why, but now I do. But basically, that's anyway. One of the related minors of the major scale. So you see, major scale has also the related minor. It's exactly the same notes, but the order that they're in gives it a feeling. Although these are the same notes, it gives it a different feeling. That's what, and it relates to modes as well. Oh yeah, same notes. What's the big deal then? I spent ages trying to work out what's the deal with modes. It's the same notes. It's the sound of putting the notes in that relationship of like, so your major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, is that relationship of that interval there. It could have gone, or it could have gone, but it didn't. It went 2 semitones up, and then it goes another 2 semitones, and it goes another semitone this time. So it goes whole tone, half tone to the F, and that's like you've got to a sort of the peak of the hill or something, you know. You start. Leveling off. But there's more to go because it gets quite steep. And then there's another plateau. And it looks a bit bleak. It gets very bleak. Before we get back to home. And so each of those is a mode. So from there to there, between two notes, is an interval. And so when we say tone, tone, semitone, we're talking about, it's like the gaps between the lines. Like if the note is the line, the interval's the gap. Okay, so tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. So it's 2 tone semitone, 3 tone semitone for a major scale. We all know that. Well, in the Western world, we pretty much all know that. Do, re, mi. Well, modes take that same starting note, but change the key. Let's just go, instead of that C being the root note of the major scale, say your major scale was B flat. And the C now sounds like this. If you start that scale on the C, instead of like this, it sounds like this. Get it? And then you get something that nice happens there. So that mode was Dorian, the second mode. It's a minor mode, but you'll find it a lot in rock music, combined with as if it was in the key of F instead of B flat. So you almost got like, it's telling you 2 5s sound good already, like because you got like the contrast between the minor and that sort of dominant, carefree sort of dangerous but happy. Whereas this is just like sad. And you combine them together, so you get, see, Dorian is between the first 2 notes is a major second, and then there's a minor second between those 2 notes. Instead of going, fourth note really, but between the third and the fourth there's now that whole tone. So it's tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, and that tone is the sixth and the seventh, flat seventh, dominant seventh. So it's like a. So that works in the minor and in the major. We'll get to the major in a second. What's called mixolydian. If you go C mixolydian, as if it was coming from like an F key, it's very much similar to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So la, ti, do. No. So that's where you get like that. The mixolydian is only one note different to the Dorian. And that note that's different is this one. Just one note changes it from minor to major, but everything else is the same. So you hold your licks like. You hear it in rock and blues and that all the time. It's a really handy one to try and just play around with. So in open fingering, that C Ionian, we know that it's okay. 5th string, 3rd fret, open 2nd fret, open D string, 2nd fret D string, 3rd fret D string, open G, 2nd G, open B, 1st B, and then 3 on B, open E, 1 on E, 3 on E. And then what's on this string's going to be the same on the bottom string. That's first mode. Second mode would be same starting note. Yeah. So even holding a note is sometimes difficult. Sometimes you just got to spend time just going. And one thing that helps, don't just do it with that finger. If you, like I did, I'd spend hours just sitting there playing one note because it was really hard to hold down and get a sound out of it. I'd have blood, you know, there was blood and pus. It was pretty ugly. It was great, I loved it. You might just spend, and so work on your rhythm. Sounds better on a 12 string, of course, but that's why I just sit there and put the radio on, something to come on, find one note, like hopefully it's a C or whatever note you're working on. Just try and hold it down and find that one note that will, like, there's another secret of music. If you hold one note down long enough, eventually, and if there's a chord sequence that makes sense, eventually that note won't sound wrong. And you can work with that. I think that's true. I think you can work with that. It doesn't. You get one note solos. It doesn't mean you can just sit on one note, but you can sometimes get away with it, and it doesn't just sound okay. It sounds fucking great. So there's, you know, and also mistakes. Sometimes you hear things with mistakes, and like, well, that sounded good though, even though it wasn't what I meant to do. Just work with it. I don't know. I just used to try and work with it. So you sit there with one note, change your finger. Get used to like having like your fingers ready for like one fret per finger. I mean, you don't have to sit there like monotonously like a metal guitarist or something, but it just helps. Like the book showed you that, you know, you use this this finger. How do you do that? This finger for the 3rd fret, this finger for the 2nd fret, this finger for the 1st fret, and pinky for the 4th fret. As a general guide, you know, not a rule, but it just tends to work. So when you get a D string, when you got nothing on the first, well, obviously you're going to have to change it up. D's are one of those things you can do any different way you like. I was taught to play them like this. I could never do that fingering, and then you're meant to change from that to a G to, well, I could never get that right. So I was like, well, what can I do that I can work out? And I was like, well, if I just go like that, yeah, but I'd just rather do it like that, because then I can still go to the C, and then I can go to the G. But I just worked that out for myself, and I still tried to do it the other ways, because I don't know. Anyway, so continuing on with the modes, you got your like Dorian. So learn a fingering here, like. So that was let's get into this. And I'm hitting that one string there. Nope, not that one. As Guthrie would say, no extra charge. This is open G. A. This is 2nd fret on the G string. And the 3rd fret on that same string. And then you C, your top C, on your B string. And you don't hit that one. That just doesn't work for this mode. You hit this one instead. And this is the other one that's different, is that E flat here. It's the 1st fret on your D string. And then you're back down to your root. And when you go below the root, you don't hit this one behind it, you hit this one on the 1st fret on the A string. So if you're going to do like your standard, that's got those notes in it. That's just the major 6, that's the flat 7. Here is your root, that's the flat 7, that's the major 7, that's the root. Root 1 back is major 7, 2 back, or 1 back from that is dominant 7th, or called the flat 7. 1 back from that is your major 6. So you can go. That's that same line, except in the 1 octave there. Like so, there's notes. Get familiar with them, and then going up from the C. That's C on the 3rd fret, next string up, and D string open. 1st fret, 3rd fret. Same again on the next string, open, except 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and then the 1st string, 1st fret, 1st finger on the B string, and the 3rd fret, then open it. Sorry. Okay, this is where it's different again. It's going to be your pinky. So and then it's going to be the first fret on the top on the E string. You not want to hit that E because that is the major third. You won't want to hit that on the minor chord unless you're going for that. As you go. It also helps to learn, following along with this 4-finger thing, is that you can learn different fingerings for the same thing. We'll continue on with the C scale. So that was Ionian, Dorian. Now the next one is Phrygian, which is a pretty interesting one. Got a very peculiar sound, an interesting sound. It goes with the C minor again, but at this time it has a flat, what we call a flat 9. So Dorian, you go from C to D in that first movement of the scale, and then to the E flat, or in the C Ionian you go C to D to that first movement, as we said, was a major second. If you think about there's 8 notes in the scale, that means there's 7 different notes. When you get to the 8th, you're repeating the first one again. So you add 7, you get what's called a 9th. If you add 7 to the second, you get the 9th. And the reason they seem to do this is because, like, it's to do with chords. You see, take every second note, so of the scale, skip that one, go to the third, skip that one, go to the 5th. There's your chord. And so they tend to call the extensions by add 7 to it. So instead of calling that the second, they'll call it the 9th. If it was in a chord, because you typically add it. I mean, it doesn't have to be in the top, but it could be. So there's your 9, you add a little D on the top. They don't call it a second, they call it a 9th. Now if that was a flat 9, it would sound like this. Flat 9's not particularly good on a major chord, but can still work, because anything can work, as we've already noted. But anyway, so your Phrygian scale has that flat 9, or that minor second. It's a minor second, which is one interval, basically. It's 1 fret away. As the first movement in the scale, which means the extensions, upper extensions on that chord, like your C minor chord. There's a C minor 7, that comes from the scale. If you want to put a 9th on the Phrygian version of it, it'll sound like this. It's very kind of macabre sounding. It's great. So that's a third position. We're doing a root position. Alright. So after Phrygian, which is, so your first one, Ionian, Dorian, That's got the major 6th, the dominant 7th. If you add a 6 on top of a 7th, they don't call it a 6/7, they call it a 13. So basically 13, it's kind of up in the air. You get to choose what you want to put in, but usually it'll be a specific version of a 13. It'll probably definitely have the major 6th and the dominant 7th, but it may or may not have a 9th or an 11th, or it may have some combination of those ones. The way they name and number chords seems to vary. Anyway, so after Phrygian we get to another one that sounds very similar to the major scale, and that is Lydian, one of the most beautiful ones of all. I love Lydian. It's so if you were just staying in the key of C, that first Ionian would be the C chord. Its 7th version would be a C major 7, because it has that B, which is only one step away from the C. If we had a 9th, it would be like a major 9th. If it had an 11th, it would be pretty ugly. No, it could work. Yeah, that works. And the 13th would be major as well. That's a bit awkward. You get the idea. It's very nice and majory sounding generally, except for that 11th, which is a straight guitar tuning away. You know, in the chord, it's a stacked 4th sort of thing. Well, depending how you look at it, could be a 5th. Well, Lydian's different. Lydian goes like this. Lydian would be if you were doing Lydian C, it would be as if it was coming from like G. So instead of having that F, it has an F sharp. So it sounds like this. You go C, D, E, F sharp. So you go C, good old standard C, D string open, E note on the 2nd fret of the D string. Pinky comes into play. 4th fret of the D string, so it's C, D, E, F sharp, and G is the next open string. Compare that to a Ionian again, the major scale. Now Lydian. And so you can sometimes just go like and that's all you need for like a really interesting chord. Just those 3 notes that aren't your typical, because it's got the sharp 11. What they call that, instead of being a 4th, they call it, as I said, they add 7 to the number, because it's not a 3rd or a 5th or a root, so they add 7 to it. I don't know why. And they call it 11. So 11 can be standard, like if it was C chord, add an 11, it would sound like an F on top. C chord adding sharp 11 sounds like this. Something similar to what you've heard in a certain particular famous song, although it uses the 9th as well, so it's like this. A C like this, it's the most weirdest fingering. I always mess it up. Yes. Alright. So you ready for this? You're going to finger a C chord with this 3rd finger on the C. This 1st finger on the next string up, leaving your middle finger free, which is going to plunk right down here on that second fret of the top E string, hit an F sharp. And this pinky is on the D string, 3rd fret of the B string, playing the 9th. So there's your sharp 11, your 9, your G, which is the 5th. So the G and the sharp 11 make that G major 7. Oh, those notes together, you'd think, oh, that's a G major 7 chord. And then it's got the E on the bottom, so it's like an E minor 9 instead of a G major 7. So let's take those 4 together. E minor 9 sound. It's beautiful. Now put in the root, which is the C. You've got chords within chords. It's great. That's You get it? So that's Lydian. It's a really wonderful, beautiful sounding scale. You should probably check out Rick Beata. He's got much better information on all this stuff. I'm just quickly going through. Alright, let's get some guitar in there. Alright, so we're up to the next one after Lydian, which in C would be like a major 7 chord, same as in the Ionian scale, except if you're going to add an F, make sure it's a sharp F. That sort of thing. Next after that, that's kind of like Home Away From Home is your 4 chord. If you're in C, like, it's your Home Away From Home. But your G chord is like you're starting to realise that you need to get back, or not, depending how you want to do it. But they typically put a 7th in there, just to give you that leading feeling. It's got that F, which leads to the, and also up to the G. So it goes from a B, F, to a C, E. It's very resolving. So that's your 5 chord, which in C, if you're in C, that would be as if you're in the key of F. And it would be a 7th chord, not a major 7 chord. Here's a major 7 chord. But we're going to put that C back on there and play a bit of John Fogerty. It goes like this. You play your C chord with your ring finger on your root note on the A string, 3rd fret. Middle finger on your E, which is the D string, 2nd fret. Open G for now, and then we'll put our first finger on C. You got your standard C. This little pinky finger is free. Stick him there on the 3rd fret on that open G, and then you can go. That there you can stick in a 9th with your little pinky if it's able to. You don't. Anyway, so that's your dominant, and the scale sounds like this. It's very similar to the Dorian, didn't it? Except it's very simple to do at the root here. It's like good old C, D, open 2, 3, open 2, 3, C. There's your 2C to C. In between is back down to C to on 3 to 1 open to 3 1 open. See, there's a repeating pattern there. 0 1 3 0 1 3 and then 0 2 3 0 2 3 sorry, 1 3 0 1 3. The only one that's different is this one. Don't hit the open B. So this is that's your Mixolydian scale. If you combine it with, that blue note, the minor third, which comes from the Dorian, that's right. Go Dorian, quickly Dorian, and then back to Mixolydian, you got your and what would it do then? Would we go, there we go. Go B flat, F, C. Anyway, so after Mixolydian, so it has that character to it, kind of. Yeah, it has that character, its own character. That's the thing about the modes, they all have their own particular sound, which comes from the slight changes in the notes compared to the other scales. And so it's more like familiarizing yourself with the sound of the scale, so that instead of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, like we all know so well, you try and get used to the sounds of the other modes. For me, it's an ongoing process. I've familiarized myself with them numerous times and feel I know some of them pretty well, but some of them I still haven't quite nailed down yet. They all have their own character. And the next one after Mixolydian, as if it was the 5 chord, would be as if it was the relative minor, the 6 minor, which would be, again, C minor. And it would be C, your minor third, of course, normal 4th, 5th, flatted 6th, 7th, and then a flatted 7th root. So the only difference between this scale, the Aeolian mode, or the relative minor, natural minor I think it's called, is and Dorian is that flatted 6 versus a normal 6. In Dorian you're going to go, oh sorry, whereas in Aeolian you're going to go, it's just that note versus that note. It's different in that scale. And then it gives that a certain character as well. It's very like, yeah, it's the same chord. Oh, it's in C minor. But if you try and, like, for some songs, if you try and put that in there, it's the wrong thing. Or if you put that in there, it's the wrong thing. It's very, sometimes it's, some chord sequences are more ambiguous, but some of them are very, very specific. This is like, this is a wrong note sort of thing. Anyway, so there's almost no difference, but the differences are big. So Aeolian again. So it's a 3 on A, open D, open D, open D, 1st fret, 3rd fret, open G, 1st fret, 3rd fret, C on the B string, 1st fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret with the pinky, and then straight to the 1st fret on the F on the next string, top string, and then it's a bit hard to reach to get to the A there, but that's the root. I mean, that's the next. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Hang on. No, it's not. Sorry, I got confused. So it's, yes, like. That's that dominant 7. It's a very sad looting sound, whereas if you hit the wrong note, which I frequently do, it sounds like this. And suddenly it doesn't sound so looting and sad anymore. You completely change the mood of the bit that you're doing or whatever. So watch out for that one. If you're going to put the extension, try and hit the right ones. I guess, I don't know. So I did it there. Try and do it in thirds like that. And be like, you know, did it? Open 3, 1. So this would all be an E flat, wouldn't it? Right, so E flat, open G, B flat. it's going to be like an A flat chord after that, isn't it? First fret, C, first fret, fourth fret, same string. A flat, C, E flat, same as an A chord, except one back. And then you've got B flat, something, where is it? B flat, D, F. It's a B flat chord. And that's the C minor again. Or is it? Yep, yes it is. Then to D, F, A flat. That's interesting. That's a minor third. And that's a minor third. If you do that, there's different ways you can look at it. So if you stack, say C, stack a minor third, stack another minor third, you get a G flat or an F sharp. Now, if you just stick with those notes, you've got a diminished. There's no doubt about it. It's a minor third on a minor third. It's a diminished chord. But what happens with, you know, like we have like C, and then we have C major 7 or C7. We have G7, we have D minor 7. What sort of a seventh happens when you have like well, it depends, doesn't it? Just say if you're in the C scale, you get to a G chord. Sorry, I suppose it's kind of like a G. It's functionally along the same lines as a dominant chord. But say you get to a B, a D and an F. Well, they all could be coming from a G7. You just stick a G in the root and you've got, it could be a G7 chord. But what if it's not G in the root? What if it's... Now it can either go put another minor third on top, or you could put a note in, the seventh in, that comes from the scale that you're in. So if you put the note in that comes from the scale that you're in, you get what's called B, what's called half diminished. So that's definitely diminished. But that's a major third from there to there, not a minor third. So it's half diminished. It sounds like that. And it sounds like this. It has a particular sound. Whereas if you keep going with that, like, let's stack another minor third on top instead of a major third. Just keep going with the minor third idea. Just keep going. Oh yeah, that's full diminished. That's diminished. That sounds like... And of course, being repeated every 3 notes, there's 12 notes in the scale, 4 3s are 12. That means every 3 frets you get the same chord, or well, basically a different inversion. that sounds like that. Whereas this is a half diminished, sounds like this. Full diminished. Very similar, but there's definitely a difference. And you can hear that sometimes. You hear them quite a lot actually. They come up, even if they're not actually those chords. As I said, these could all be in relation to a G chord. You could like have G in the root, and they could be going like over a G, which actually sounds quite nice. Or they could be going, which is different. That probably wouldn't work as well. Could be, instead of a B diminished, that could be an E7. An E7 with a flat 9. So if you take that same chord, that B diminished, full diminished chord, stick an E in it, you've got an E7 flat 9. So sometimes when you read chord charts and that, you got to know this stuff just so that you can try and interpret it, what they actually meant. Sometimes, I mean, it just depends. A lot of people don't do chord charts anymore. I don't know why. It's not so long bloody learning to read them. So that's your. We're up to the Locrian scale. That's called Locrian mode, and in C it sounds like this. It's got a minor second. So he goes. It's this chord, the C half diminished. And if we're just going straight from the diatonic modes, then this goes like C, D flat, E flat, F, G, no, yeah, G flat. Hang on, I've got to get this right. It'd be as if it was coming from the key of D flat. It would be the 7th mode of that. So that would be. I'm going to get this right. It's so close to the 7, to the actual major scale, and you can tell that that was a big mistake in my thinking for a long time. Is it's just the same chord notes as the major scale, and I still always think in relation to the major scale they're coming from. with the modes. Well, I've got most of them under control, but Locrian gets used not as often, not as much. I might, maybe so. Maybe it does get used more, but it gets recognised less. Because again, they tend to, well, generalising pretty broadly, tends to come up in those tension. It's got a lot of tension in it. I mean, I think Björk's got a song in Locrian, but it's pretty rare to have a song like in that sort of key or mode. Anyway, that's a tough one. So it's at root position. Good old C, minor second, pinky 1 fret up, first fret on the D string, 3rd fret on the D string, 4th fret on the D string, pinky comes in again. So it's almost fully closed position already. It is all closed position, even though it's at root position. There's no open strings in it. So there you go. If you can do this, it's going to have an F sharp, except it'll be a G flat to an F. The D flat would be the Ionian scale that's coming from. You start on the 7th note. That's that character of the sound. It's got typically get that as well. You have, as a typical change to learn, is just going from a B minor 7 flat 5, or what's called half diminished. Sorry, C half diminished, to an F7 sharp 9, which is actually B half diminished to B full diminished. I mean C half diminished to C full diminished. So it's like, in fingering wise, you're going from like a B7, a C7 to an F7. But it sounds jazzy, so it's like, I can't even hear it. Standard changes to learn. So we're at Locrian, so I've got all this. So we've got C, C major 7, C7, and what have we got? C minor. Okay, that's. If you can get your finger there, you can put it there, or you can just put that one there and not play the top string. C minor is a hard one at the root, because E's not in it. Neither is this one. So those strings can't be open and ringing. The G can ring. The G string is okay. C string's got to be down. That note's not in it. That note's not in it. And that's not in it. That's the only one that's in it. G at the top on the E string, top G. So far, no different to a C major chord. The only way you're going to find that E flat note that makes it minor is either there, so instead of a C there, it's C. You could just mute those top strings and just play that chord. Except that's pretty hard. What's even harder is trying to stick so you've got C, E flat, open G, and the next string on where the C normally is there, you want to put this finger. That there is a C minor chord if you can just play those three strings. Notice I'm grabbing onto the top string with my finger so it doesn't ring. I'll do all kinds of things just to stop things from ringing sometimes, and it doesn't always work, but you just practice. And best practice sometimes is to be thrown into live gigs and get used to the performance. It's really different to just practicing. He's playing something I was still learning. Okay. But there's a flow to these things. You want to feel the vibe and go with it. Gently, that's what I'm trying to do. So after it sort of taught me, it didn't teach me all those modes of it. It just taught me this book that I was reading to begin with. It taught me just the major scale, and then the minor scale, and then these different minor scales, which is interesting. So you have like your natural minor. Then you have this one called something or other. No, hang on. That's it. It sounds much more like a major scale, but just with that minor third instead. So that's the only difference instead of going. Because after that it's the same. It goes. But there, where you expect a semitone change, it's actually another whole tone. So it's tone, semitone, tone, semitone. And that's called something like melodic minor. No, it's not. It's called harmonic minor, I think. And then you've got, well, that would be a harmonic minor. And then you've got another one called melodic minor, which there's a lot of kerfuffle about. But I've come to the conclusion that it's just a load of hogwash, and there's one thing, sometimes called jazz melodic minor. It's melodic minor, regardless of what the crap they say about it. Because, look at Adam Neely's channel, I think he mentions it, talks about it much better than I can. It goes like this. So the seventh is that G sharp. There's no G there. It's a raised seventh, what they call a major seven, or a non-flatted seventh. So it gives that scale a very interesting sound. Other than that, it's the same as the natural minor, apart from that difference in the seventh. It goes, it's got a major 9, minor third of course, it's a minor, standard 11 or 4th, standard 5th, it's got that natural minor flatted sixth. That's that sound of that flatted sixth from the minor. If that means anything to someone, you might recognise it. Then you get to the raised seventh, which is why I think my teacher basically said something like, well, it wasn't, you just couldn't harmonise that, so they called it melodic. Melodic minor, but the thing that's interesting about that, let's just change this to C, so it's like C, because we're doing all the modes in C. Let's go through them, through the minor modes of C. We've already done Locrian, which was a closed position. Might as well start on some closed position C. Let's go through all the modes in closed position C. Go. What I'd call second position. I think the book said it was like second position. Basically, your first finger is going to be on this fret, second finger in the third fret, second fret for the first finger. That's why it's second position. Up to the dot. And works well. Your root notes are going to be here and here. Well, depending, and okay, so it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, different fingers you can learn. So there's different fingerings for all the scales that you can use or choose, work them out for yourself, whatever. Because that stretch down to the F is a bit F sometimes at these lower frets. So you can just like start C. There, you could actually slide up. And then your first finger's there for the D. And then F's there. Instead of having to stretch all the way back there, you can get it there. G, A. Anyway, so we all know C major scale. So it's a third fret again, the same, except now you're using your second finger instead of your first finger. Oh, third finger. It's the same note that you're starting on. And you're going to go up 2 frets on that same string with your pinky. Practice it with all your fingers. You know, all the combinations you can just to strengthen up your fingers. But yeah, for this thing we're doing C major scale, so it's oops, see, yep, that happens. your seventh is just behind it, so you can go. And then it's that same E note from a C chord, but this time you're using your first finger there on the D string, 2nd fret. So you've come from here. Instead of going open, you've gone, because remember when you tune your guitar, they're meant to be the same. So new strings, they go out. Anyway, you get the idea. Probably this video is way over long. We'll just rip through that. So that one, and then your Dorian. You move up to 3rd position for Dorian. Or do we want to learn C all the way up? Alright, we'll learn C all the way up. And then or you can just, but yeah, some basic, learning the basic positions. So that was the 2nd position, C. 5th position, C. Start with your first finger on the 5th fret. And the pinky's going to start this one off. It's a pretty tough one on the pinky, but it's good to practice for your pinky. C, D, E. So that's C on your bottom 6th string, on your E string. D there on your A string, 5th fret. 7th fret with your 3rd finger on an E. F with the pinky right under the C. That's your 4th. F is a 4th away, or a 5th below, or a 4th above. C. It's your home away from home. Your sus note on a C, etc. So there's your G. And there's your E, and there's your C. So there's your chord. Then that's an A note from the G on the 5th on the D string. 7 on the D. This is the hard one. You can either go pinky to the 9th fret on the D string, and then C is on the 5th fret G string. So that's a bit of a stretch and a bit hard. You can go and just slide back to the B, and then keep going. It won't hamper you in either direction. It's good to learn both ways actually, because you're going for, depending on where you're coming from and what you want to sound like. So it's a slide from that B up to the 5th fret. So basically you're at the 5th position, you have to slide back to catch that B, or you've got to stretch up to catch that B on the string below on the 9th fret, or at the 4th fret on the G string. Slide up with your first finger, then you're back in position. 3rd finger is on the 7th fret, G string, B string, 5th fret, first finger. F's there straight after it, next finger, next fret. 2 frets up from that with your pinky again, all on the 1 string, the B string. And then A's right under your first finger again. And I think you all know this scale, it's pretty out there. Oops. Try it again. which way you want to go with that. Learn them both. So that's just your C scale at the 5th position. Then you get to the 7th position. C, it's the same C we just did, but now you're going to use your 2nd finger for it. It's at the 8th fret, which will lose your 1st finger on the 7th. So C at the 8th fret on the E string, 2 frets up of course is your D. It's the same pattern. Only easier. Top string E string, 8th fret, 2nd finger. 1st finger, 1 fret back. Next string down, a B string. You're going to be at the 10th fret with your pinky finger. But if you've got this finger at the 7th fret, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Then 2 frets down at the 8th, 7. Oh, except no, sorry, that's not in it. So it goes C, B, A, G. F is pinky on the G string at the 10th fret. 9th fret is 7th fret. So F, E, D, C. That's your other root, is your pinky at the 10th fret on the D string. This is where you go straight to on the B string, it's 8th fret, which is a G note. 2 frets up on your pinky at the 10th fret, and then 7th fret, 1st finger, top string. There's your root, and 2 frets up is the D. And then there's one more to complete the set, really, is a much harder one. I don't know what position I'd call it. Probably the 9th position, although it's kind of 8th. Start on the 8th. So it's big stretches there. 2 fret, fret 8, 1st finger, fret 10, 2nd finger, fret 12, 4th finger. Same again on the next string, so on the A string, same again. So you're stretching back with your 1st finger from this 9th position to the 8th fret. Then back up to the 9th position. We stretch back again for that. Or you can go like this little bit inside here is probably the most interesting bit of this pattern, because this is a bit naff, this stretchy bit. But this bit from then you can just slip up 1 fret to the 10th fret on your 1st finger. And then slide back to the 12th fret with the 5th finger. Just for completeness sake, but notice that pattern there, you go one back from it, you've got this, and then it repeats again up here on this so it's kind of handy scale pattern to have under your fingers, and it completes the set because now you know from the open position, 3rd position, 5th position, 7th position, 9th position, which takes you all the way up to the 12th fret, which is, you know, you begin again. So there's all your 5 positions that you need to learn a scale or whatever in, to know the whole fretboard, because you know everything above it now as well. It's up here, it's the same as here. It keeps going up, the same as it did. So, and yeah, obviously you don't, some of those things are really awkward, but it's handy to know, but some of them are really useful and you use a lot. Some of those patterns within the scales that just seem to come up a lot. So it's handy to do that. And the other thing that's handy, I think a lot of the other guitar courses show this, is to just, like we're doing, is just go through the different character of the chords. Like so a 7th chord can have different modes on it. That's what I was going to talk about. And this is interesting with the like, say if you had like F harmonic minor, it would sound like C so it would be like, there it is. So a C7 could have that mode with it. And that's what I love. I love that mode. It's technically, I came to it from learning this jazz theory that said it was like a 5/7 of 5/7 of 5, or something like that, or a 5/7 of 5/7 of, or, you know, there's different ways you can come to it, but it's called Mixolydian mode, which Mixolydian is this, as we know. And yeah, it's got something about that, but it's a Mixolydian with a flat 9, so it's Mixolydian, instead of, it would be with a flat 9, it would be, oops. So it's got that, and it's a flat 13. What's a flat 13? It's a flat 6. Take 7 off it. It's a 6, which would be an A. From a C is an A, so it's an A flat. So it's compared to, it's now from just now. So it's got the flat 9, we know that. That's the flat 13, as opposed to this. And the dominant 7 and the root. Sounds very, very minor. great song by Super Jesus. It sort of uses that a little bit, kind of great. Yeah, anyway. It gets used. And a lot of the time it's not actually Mixolydian flat 9, flat 13. It's more the harmonic minor, but just that scale has a great sound, and I love it. If you take F, or what would it be, A flat, the key of A flat, and then take the relative minor, F, same notes, and then you take the melodic minor version of it, which will sound like this. And then you use those exact same notes. You start them on that 5th note there. Basically, what I'm saying is, you can start a mode, a scale on each of those notes. And the 5th one here is, so that Mixolydian flat 9, flat 13 is just actually the 5th mode of the melodic minor scale, which blew my mind. Anyway, so you can go like, you've got diatonic chords from it. You can go like, and you can go, and you can go. There's so much wealth of stuff there that I could just spend a lifetime just writing all stuff only in those modes. Anyway, I think I'll sign off for now. Let me know if you actually find any of this interesting, or what do you want to hear about. Maybe we could talk about it and do some stuff. I'm happy to share, and I'm really keen to pick up any other tips and tricks, you know, advice, funny stories, whatever, don't know. Alright, cheers.